start first by just kind of picking your brain and seeing, what got you into, the career path that you have now with comics. I know it's probably a long-winded answer, but maybe you have like a smart.
Well, I'm going to try not to be long-winded. Basically, if you see behind me, I discovered one of these things when I was a kid, going to the local Kmart, and saw the spinner rack, and it had all these comics, and it floored me, and it made me even more excited because I started to connect what I saw on the stands with the things that I saw on TV. They were connecting. I started to connect the dots, and I realized, wait a minute, those cartoons that I see on Saturday mornings, there's books for these things. So I begged my mom to purchase my first set of comics, and back in the days they were in the 3-pack. You're a little young for that, so you wouldn't know that part, but they came in 3-packs, and that's where the addiction began. I broke that pack open and just combed through the 3 comics, and I was hooked. I was ready to go to the store the next day to get more, and I started drawing from those, and fast forward, graduated from school, and because that's what I wanted to do. That was such a fascinating thing to me, seeing those books and realizing that there are people actually doing those things. And I love drawing anyway, because I was kind of already drawing from the cartoons. And so seeing the books, it felt even more attainable. It felt more achievable because it was such a foreign concept. Who draws these cartoons? Who are they? And where's the companies? And that stuff is so far-fetched. But this comic book thing is kind of the same thing. And it's just a bunch of drawings that I can literally just hold in my hand. So that made it a lot more realistic in terms of the aspirations to want to do something like that professionally. So I went to my first convention and in Charlotte, up the street there, and showed my work to Marvel, DC, because that was a time where a lot of the companies would go to the shows. They would travel, all over the state. All over the country, and that's where I showed my work for the first time. And they told me I needed to work on some things, like most people, and but they saw potential, and that was all I needed to hear, because I got excited. That felt like a yes, So you say there's a chance, I feel like I was like holding on to, any little morsel of opportunity. So I went back, and I went back and I started working on my craft and got better. And 6 months later, went to another convention, showed my work again, gave me more instruction, advice. And so we're talking about doing stuff like that for about 2 years before I really got into getting published. So I tell a lot of students all the time, it's a little different now because you have the internet. You can put things out right now and everyone can see it all over the world. But back then, right, I was right on the cusp of the internet. And so that was one of the things where the only way you could get opportunities, that you have to be, one-on-one in front of these publishers. So to finally get that break, it took 2 years to get that break. So it was full steam ahead from that point. I got some small published stuff, did that for a few years, eventually broke into DC, and my first book there was Superman, of all the I got thrown in the deep end, and that was a rough experience, man, to be honest with you. I wasn't ready. I was excited about it, but I wasn't ready. And a lot of it was on me in terms of my maturity. I just wasn't disciplined enough, and I wasn't. I didn't. I loved the idea of working than actually working. So I kind of got dialed down a bit, down my career for a few years, and I had to build back up, and eventually got to a place where I got back to Marvel and DC, and I never looked back.
All right, awesome, awesome. Well, that's actually a great segue in the fact that you're talking about, how cons played a role in kind of, getting you into the industry. So I was curious to know what it is about SC Comicon, because I'm sure there are a ton of cons that you have a chance to go to throughout the year, and they're ones that you have to decide to go to over others, logistically, for a whole bunch of reasons. So what is it about SC Comicon that drew you and made you say, yeah, like I want to do that show?
Well, truth be told, because it was local. It was one of those shows where a lot of the folks that was putting it on, I know these guys are good people. Rob and his wife, and his staff from Borderlands, and it was just one of those deals where they were trying to do something great, and they needed the support, the local support especially, and I just thought it would just be a great opportunity, because they're a lot like Heroes, like the beginning stages of what Heroes was. Real comic centric, really community centric as well. Excuse me. So, I like that kind of show. I love those shows like that.
All right, terrific. Now, before we officially, went on live, you were showing, one of the works that you're co-creator on and has been nominated, Bitterroot. So, how did that all come about? Because it's such, in terms of, the story for that comic and what it entails, it's such a fascinating one. So, I'd love to know how that all came about.
Well, Bitterroot, honestly, came about from we're going through this unprecedented time right now,
Sure.
in our
Ironically, it's actually very
world.
yeah.
It again?
I was saying, yeah, ironically, yeah, it's actually very, very close to what we're dealing with now.
And truth be told, Bitterroot was kind of conceived through a previous, I guess, social, political upheaval in our country during the elections, in 2016. Just being candid, it really rocked a lot of people, myself included, and my co-creators. But this was before we were doing anything together. But so I felt this anxiety and stress and uncertainty about just what does this all mean during that time. And the only thing I could think of was to draw and create and try to, get out of that headspace. And long story short, Chuck Brown, one of the co-creators, who's also a local Carolina guy, he had this idea about doing this story with a family that hunts monsters during the Harlem Renaissance. And, or at least it was just people that did the hunting of monsters during the Harlem Renaissance. It wasn't necessarily the family aspect of it yet. For some reason, I remember him talking about wanting to do something like that. And I just got inspired one day, and I started sketching out the characters, or this is what would they look like in that world and setting. And I showed it to him. He thought it was awesome. And long story short, David, we were still working on Power Man and Iron Fist at the time. And that was wrapping up. and but we wanted to do something else with Luke Cage, possibly with his heritage being in Harlem. Long story short, Marvel passed that up, but we liked the idea, so we took some of the seeds of that, and we started to plant some of that stuff within the concept for Bitterroot, and we started just collaborating back and forth. And long story short, we came up with this whole idea, put it together about this family of monster hunters during the Harlem Renaissance, and we pitched it to Image, and before we could finish the sentence, they were like, "Yes, we would love to have this." So yeah, man, like you said, it's just been a great ride, the reaction that we've received from fans, and some of the notoriety we've gotten, and just to have also the it getting option for a film has been really cool. Actually, that's been pretty surreal, to be honest with you. And yeah, man, I was joking with those guys yesterday. We were talking about just how the pandemic has kind of slowed everything down, and we were right on the cusp of finishing the second arc, and then everything stopped. So we're kind of like reevaluating, how do we want to, when everything gets, kind of gets rolling again, how we're going to present this thing. So we got some cool ideas we think could be really cool during the meantime. So I guess stay tuned.
All right, sounds good. Well, that's what you're saying is actually a great segue into my next question. Is other friends of mine that are also in the industry. This is unprecedented time in terms of how it affects what it is that they do, be it artist, creator, what have you. But it's also, I feel, forced everyone to be a bit more creative in how they approach what it is that they do. So with that being said, how is that how's the current landscape and environment now affected what you do? I'm assuming you're continuing to do commissions and things of that nature, but other things as well. Perhaps in a unexpected way, just like you were saying that things have slowed down a bit. Maybe in an unexpected way, it's allow you to slow down and actually get a backlog of things done that perhaps you had on the back burner. Or maybe it's actually hindered things. So I love to know if the current landscape has shaped things in an interesting way that you didn't really foresee.
Well, I think it's a little bit of all of those things. Just to be honest with you, man, I started thinking about just the stability of the industry and in this climate, and just how much can we do as creators, definitely from a traditional standpoint. Like, obviously, like you said, the publishing side of everything is halted. The printing side of it, the digital side is being talked about a lot, but then there's the dichotomy of just how do you do that and still be aligned with the distribution, the retailers, I should say, not the distributors as well, but the retailers especially. So we're doing some things right now to try to help, some innovative things to try to help the retailers, and just kind of keep them afloat for the most part. Doing the commissions, doing exclusive, one-off deals with fans. Get a chance to do a one-on-one session if you purchase a certain item or whatever. So it's almost like we're kickstarting. We're doing a Kickstarter model with the entire community, if you will, the comics community. I know for me, even a more personal level, I've become my own distributor. I'm going to the post office and I'm sending out all the books myself. You know, I happen to have like I got this pretty decent order of books that I had for conventions. Obviously, those aren't going to happen. So I had to get the books out there to the people some way. So I just posted, you know, what I would do and what I have available for the fans, and just sending them out. I take orders and send them out. So honestly, it's kind of, in a weird way, therapeutic, because drawing is therapeutic in itself. But sometimes, especially recently, once I finished with an assignment, I'm kind of just left floating a little. I don't have a direct due date for something, and you can get a little stir crazy. So I think having that outlet of being able to go and to the post office, oddly enough, to the post office is kind of a therapeutic thing now. I got all these books and I feel like I'm doing something. I'm connecting in some kind of way. So, it's all those different things.
Gotcha. And I'm assuming, because I was looking at, what was going on online. I'm assuming that's what's been happening with the creators for comics hashtag that I was seeing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, doing that, and the reception is pretty awesome. Of course, you knew that the comics community would come together and do something, man. I mean, things have been so polarizing in the last couple of years with, I don't know, diversity, inclusion, people just screaming at whatever those things are, what they want, what they don't want, and who shouldn't be on this book, and this book shouldn't exist, or whatever. It's kind of nice to know that has quieted down to some degree, and this is the focus for right now. So yeah, comics for creators for comics is the initiative right now, and it's doing pretty good.
Cool. And speaking of diversity, it's funny that you bring that up, because I was speaking with back at C2E2. I was speaking with Ken Lashley, and talking about that diversity piece, and being a figure in the comics industry, and how that can kind of shape your career path, and the paths that you take along that career path. So with that being said, what advice would you give to those that are people of color, or are not the standard the standard face that you might see in the industry, if they are trying to break in? Because as you said, that can be a thing that we're still in today's society, we're still improving upon, and we're still working towards.
Oh yeah. I mean, man,
I know it's loaded.
Yeah, that's a loaded one, because I think honestly, when you get those kind of questions, you have to kind of give a very straightforward answer, because it is so nuanced. Just create, man. There's going to be an audience for it. Oh gosh, she slips my mind just that quickly. She's going to kill me because I can't think of her name, but she's created this book called Check Please. It's online. It was online. She did it a digital first, and it got really popular. She did a Kickstarter to get it printed. She made over $500,000. Okay, she's not, big name person at with the big two companies or anything like that. She just and her style is definitely not a style that you would see in the big two, not traditional, if you want to call it that. But she had a story, and it was a unique story, and her art accompanied that, and it made her story really just resonate. And she now has multiple book deals. And that being said, all she did was just put it out there because she knew she couldn't do it at the big two, you know, other smaller publishers or the more independent publishers. They weren't necessarily looking for anything at the moment. And that's the thing too with publishers, they don't really know what they want until they see it. So she had to create this thing. And I tell that to everyone, just create, do your story, you're the only one that can tell your story. And you make it unique to, you make your unique story to a unique world, and you're going to get an audience. So just put it together.
All right, awesome. Well, Sanford, thank you so much. I know it's late. Thank you for coming on to just to chat with me and talk about Bitterroot, about about the how you've been handling the current landscape right now, and how that's been shaping is what you do. I actually really am looking forward to Bitterroots, since you were talking about that movie option. That's pretty awesome. Really looking forward to seeing that on the screen. But aside from that, can you tell people where they can find you, man?
You can find me Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Sanford Greene. And you just said something interesting. You said, "Hey, it's getting late." I'm like, man, at this state in time, I think time is really kind of
relative. I know.
like, hey, man, we could have chopped it up until 4 a.m, and I don't have anywhere to go.
I feel you.
I know people still got work, and we all still have some sense of duty, but for the most part, man, I think the whole world is understanding how fleeting time is right now, man. It's like, you can be here and time will just pass, so. But yeah, man, I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. All right. Well, take care. Be safe. And talk to you later, man. Peace.